Three, two, one. All right, I'm officially hungover. Welcome. Thanks for joining us at Shark Tank Hangover, the only place on YouTube for the most awesome insider recaps of the show. And I'm here with the one and only Julie Busha of Slawsa. Julie, how are you?
Hi.
Awesome. What flavor is that? What are you packing?
That's the original right here, but it's 12:30, so good morning to you. And I've had lots of hot chocolate, so I'm wide awake.
The sacrifices you Shark Tank entrepreneurs not only make to grow your business and to come on and chat about Shark Tank. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So big show tonight. It's the 5th episode that we've done this. Damon is on the show tonight. I don't know if I've even seen him all season long. But before we do that, you were just awarded Top Grocer of the Year. You've been doing some amazing things since your Shark Tank airing. Give us like the 30-minute recap of where you're at today. What have we missed out on?
Yeah, well, actually, in probably about 2 weeks, I go down to Orlando. Progressive Grocer magazine, which is our industry's largest magazine, they honor the top women in grocery, and somehow they picked me. So I'm one of the recipients in the executive category, which I think is completely bizarre, but it's really a great honor to have been noticed. And we've got some fun stuff actually shipping up to Canada today to Toronto. Slawsa is going to be in all Hero burgers, Hero certified burgers. It's a chain based out of Toronto. They actually just opened a Buffalo location. So we've got product on the food service side and on the retail side headed to them. They are the official burger of the Maple Leafs and the Raptors. And Walmart's expanded us west. We're now into South and Central Texas, as far west there. Even like Brownsville and Laredo. So we're right along the Mexican border too.
So like a Hero burger and a Slawsa burger. Is that what you're saying? You can order either.
Well, you know, Q1 for Hero burger, there is going to be a special burger with us. So not only will we be on the menu right now as a condiment that anybody can use, but there's going to be something special coming out in Q1, which is really exciting because I'll probably go up to Toronto for that.
And of course, you and I have some great news. It's not related strictly to the Slawsa growth that you're seeing, but we're going to release the first Shark Tank podcast digital course for people who are trying to break into the grocery launch. And the reason is because, like you told me, you spent months, if not years, and a lot of money learning what you need to know and making a lot of mistakes. And we're trying to help people get around those mistakes and shortcut their own growth in the grocery market. So our course comes out in November. I'll link to it here, but I'm really excited to kind of share and distill your expertise in the market and help the up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So I thank you in advance for doing that, and I'll invite everyone to check that course out when it's available. Julie is a tireless worker. She doesn't sleep. She's kind of like one of those vampires in Twilight, and she knows just about everything about executing and marketing. And you used to work for NASCAR, and you were like all the rage, right? I mean,
in NASCAR, I worked for a driver. I was director of marketing for an agency, and I was very, very fortunate along the food side to have had General Mills for a client for 9.5 years. So my knowledge of the food industry dates back a little bit prior to, starting Slawsa, which certainly helped.
All right. So cool thing about the food industry is that we're starting off tonight in the 5th week of Shark Tank season 7 with, well, the name of the company was 3 Jerks. I only saw 2. So they're actually looking to incorporate a 3rd jerk in the form of a shark into their business, which I got to say, prima facie, I was thinking I would be that jerk. I love just about every single section of this animal right here, and I'm down for the struggle. What do you think? First impressions?
Well, actually, what I did before watching it, and I've got my full page of notes,
That's actually nice.
I decided to read the, I guess the little blurb that Shark Tank puts out on their PR release to kind of just get an idea of initial gut reactions, maybe some gut reactions that the Sharks would have when, the company first came in. I do have a strong background in beef, and again, I wish Dave Alwyn could have been on this episode with us. Would have been nice to have all 3 of us, because I think he could have really spoken about the specific cuts of beef and why certain cuts of beef are used to make beef jerky and why some are not. To talk about the category as a whole, and Mark alluded to it, it is a saturated category. In the all natural, the space that they were in, the no preservative space, I would say there are probably 20 companies like theirs, not saying that they were doing filet mignon beef jerky, but just the no preservative, the clean beef jerky. And the biggest one is Perky Jerky. And Perky Jerky, gosh, I think they've been around probably since the mid 90s or maybe around 2000, but they are the big one in that kind of all natural space. You know, I think the hot thing right now with jerky is not beef, but it is bison and it is venison and it is elk and it is more of the buffalo, the wild game jerky. That's kind of the hot thing. And then make your own jerky kits. You're seeing those throughout all Bass Pro Shops. You're seeing them in grocery stores. I've made beef jerky, and my background of my knowledge in the agricultural industry is relatively strong. I grew up raising cattle, primarily dairy cattle, but I did have a Grand Champion F1 Cross Angus beef breeding cow in the county fair. I had a limousine as well. With hogs, and so being the president of my FFA chapter and 4-H clubs, I have a pretty decent knowledge of the cuts of beef that you would use to make jerky.
Okay, quick question. So Grand Champion, is it crowned Grand Champion before or after you eat it? Like, do you have to cut it open to know?
No, before. And actually mine was not a steer, it was a beef breeding cow. She actually just threw a calf maybe 4 weeks before the fair, and she was a great cow. So no, we did not eat her. She was for breeding.
So my great grandfather made jerky when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I didn't appreciate it, right? Because to me, he was. So as he got older and I got older, I started wanting it all the time, and he slowed down, and now he's not with us anymore, but he focused on deer jerky, and we used to get it all the time, and it was amazing. And the thing I didn't realize then also was it costs like $10 a bag now when I go to buy it, which if you go to Costco, it comes in a vacuum pack bag that's about this big, and there's about this much jerky in it. So I kind of miss the good old days of getting it for free from my grandpa. But yeah, no. I never had filet mignon jerky, so I do want to try some. I don't know why more people don't make filet mignon, if you said they're not doing it already. So those are questions I had. Another observation, they mentioned that we've been eating a cow's butt. Technically, I've been eating deer butt, but it's delicious, so I'm cool with that. Right. I don't know where it comes from. And the chipotle adobo flavor sounded amazing. Aside from that, for me, this is really just a company where I'd love to taste it. If the jerky's awesome, maybe they'll make it. I like the fact that they're a higher priced item. I think people want to pay for premium goods. They don't have to be the Walmart brand if they don't think that makes sense. But, you know, it seemed to be pretty clear cut and dry. $350,000 in the last 12 months. Not too bad. We didn't get a lot of history on the company. We don't know how long they've been in business. We don't know what they did the 12 months beforehand. We just know there's two guys running it by themselves, and it seems like they're making decent money. So thoughts where they go from here. The deal that they had was with Damon John, and we should talk about that afterwards too, because that was an interesting negotiation.
Yeah, no. One thing I did notice about their packaging, and this kind of surprised me just by seeing it on TV, is you can't see the jerky. And I think when I'm shopping for jerky, I kind of want to see what it looks like. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. TJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, I did think about that. I mean, and to me, I was thinking, well, maybe that's because it's like the whole butcher psychology of it. You know, you're getting it wrapped in paper, which I like to do occasionally. But I don't know. Can you see the beef jerky in other brands? If you get the beef steaks ones, I don't think you can. I think the only beef jerky you can see is the Slim Jim, which doesn't even really count as jerky. So maybe they're trying to get away from it.
I know that Jack Links, you can see it. I guess I'm curious of what size pieces I'm going to get. I think the one part that was kind of missing out when they were discussing, and they didn't really talk about the process of making it, but when you're making beef jerky, you're brining it for, you know, maybe 8 to 24 hours before drying it out, which is why I'm curious. And I know they're using the filet mignon because that's a marketing piece, and most average Americans or average people hear that word and they think, oh, it's got to be better. But eye of round or a flank steak, a piece of meat that has really more of a dense meat to fat ratio, where it's just fat around the outside. Because when you're dehydrating it, you're getting that fat out of it. A filet mignon beef jerky, if you made it out of like a prime rib or ribeye steak, it would be easier to pull apart. But if it's properly brined, any of those pieces of meat would be fine. So for me, I just think, golly, what a waste of a prime or a filet mignon to not eat it the way I would eat it, but to dry it out, take that fat and marbling out of it. That makes it so tender and good. But I'm sure, and I'm sure it tastes good.
So the average consumer doesn't realize that it doesn't matter if you use filet mignon or not. So they're paying more money to market it as a premium product, even though it really makes no difference. Which a lot of companies do this. So I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And if they wanted to even take a step further, I would say, you know, I don't know if their beef is fully traceable or grass-fed beef. I didn't see that on the packaging, but those are two key points that even if they wanted to go with a flank steak or a different cut, and they wanted to say it was Wagyu or Kobe beef, those are marketing and selling words that people perceive as being better. So, you know, I know that they're marketing, and there is going to be a demand of people who have lots of money who they just don't know any different, and they immediately think that, you know, it's going to be better because it's that particular cut of meat.
And here's the thing: if you like Jack's Links and I get the steak bites, there have been times where I bought those and they haven't been very good. And so if you spend $12 on a bag of those and it's not delicious, the reaction they got from the Sharks is pretty solid. So if it says filet mignon, if it's in the brown bag and you can't see it, but if you buy it, for me as a beef jerky fan, if I buy it and I taste it and it's delicious, I'm just thinking to myself, there's no reason, especially at $17, or I think maybe they said it's up to 17, but $12 a bag, that jerky should never be dry or not taste good. And as long as they meet that standard, then I'm going to buy it again. I'm going to stick with them. So
they're with the filet mignon cut of beef, they're about 2.5 times the cost of turkey jerky or the other all natural, no preservative competition. And it's going to be difficult for them to get into mainstream retailers because of that. Well, but they're absolutely in the market for it.
The upscale grocer is the perfect spot for them, I would think. You're the grocery gal, but Walmart, the Jack's Links original small bag is $4.48 retail. These guys cost is $3.20. So your math's probably exactly right on it, 2.5 times standard cost for the lower cost good. I think the math checks out. Real quick on the negotiation. Mark Cuban, jerky market's too competitive, and you're in the first inning. I don't want to take this ride with you. I'm out. Robert Herjavec thinks they're going to make it, so he's going to give him $100,000 for 20% instead of the 15 point. Damon John claims he's a jerkologist. I thought that was a good line. If you've listened to my podcast with Barbara, she claims that Damon is like the funniest human being on the planet. So I like it when he throws out a little color on the show. Lori Grenier, also $100,000 for 20%. Kevin O'Leary, $125,000 for 33 1/3%. He needs to be a 1/3 partner. They countered him to $200,000. He recountered to $150K, and his line was fantastic. He said, "I am worth more than all the other Sharks, so I'm not going to make you the deal." Pretty sure that was not going to work, but I love hearing him say it. Damon John, $100,000 down to 17.5%, and then he made the offer of $100,000 for 15%. Plus, after they get into the marriage together, another $100,000 for 15% as an option to up his stake. Right. Now, here's where things got interesting for me. He did that. Lori tried to jump. They asked for someone else to enter the deal, specifically Lori. So Robert got left out at the curb, which is I mentioned on another show. Every time I see a curb, I think of Robert on this show. And Damon shot her down. He didn't want to work with Lori. They said the roles would get messed up and there'd be confusion about who does what. So Robert turned to Lori, or Lori turned to Robert and said, "How about we get in together?" And they basically said, "Oh, same deal. See you later. We want Damon." And they made the deal happen. Go ahead. I was going to say, as someone who's been on Shark Tank and you've been there, done that, what deal would you have wanted? What deal would you have taken? Did they make a good move or a bad move?
Well, you know what? Damon isn't a bad one. I know he doesn't have as much experience on the grocery side, but I think what they could have been thinking about is Damon doesn't have tons of deals. Like Lori just has tons of deals. And Damon's ability to get them update segments is probably pretty strong, to be honest.
Good point.
So I think that they probably felt more for the long run, they'd get more attention from him than they might get from Lori, who does have like Scrub Daddy and some of these really big ones that might just be taking more of her time. I'm not sure.
But I don't
know that any of the sharks on the panel have
Scrub Daddy one ready, just in case. Here it
is. Okay. Now keep your Slawsa one on.
I will. Maybe I'll wear this one next week. But thank you, Aaron, for that. So that's a really good point as far as his update ability, because you're right. Damon, he's got some really strong deals, though. I've talked to some of the people he works with. I think since she's the food queen on the show, but the observation I took from it was basically Robert's like, hey, I'll jump in here. And they said, yeah, see you later, Robert. So part of me wonders if people, when they do their research and they're getting ready to go on the show, if they've figured out that one, and this gets said a lot on my show, doing a deal with more than one shark often causes problems and is more likely it's more likely the deal falls apart because of the negotiations between both sharks.
Probably true.
And two, Robert Herjavec doesn't close his deals. So maybe they just had no interest in doing it. I would like to actually chat with them and have them on the show. So I'll find out, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I could definitely see that deal sticking together. I just don't know. Can you think of any food products Damon's done? I can't off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, he's done the Bubba's boneless ribs, but I'm not sure, I mean, they've gotten a lot of Shark Tank love, and, I know it was a struggle for them to get off the ground, or even if they have, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and Julie follows the market, knows what their market share is. She knows all that good stuff. Even if she won't say it tonight, I'm sure she knows exactly what's going on.
And here's some advice for Damon. It may not be bad for him to look at the Asian markets, because in the last 5 years, Asia has really, really started to embrace beef jerky or jerkies as a snack food overseas. And because I think they would value that filet mignon more and there's less competition, looking at exporting.
Interesting. So what are they replacing with this jerky? Is it some kind of sushi treat? What is it?
No. They just up until about 5 years ago, they really weren't introduced to jerky at all, any kind of jerky. Right. So it's just a new treat for them.
Gotcha. Good point. So next up is, the deal with Damon. I just lost the paper. I had it, so I should be able to remember. $100,000 for 15%, $100,000 for 15% option. I'm also haven't seen one like that in a while. I think PowerPot did something similar, but it also included a advisory role or a spot on the board with options for Mark Cuban. So I'd really like to find out if that was how the deal was negotiated.
Yeah, no, they got a really great valuation for, how early they were in the game in their competition. So
I agree. And with the level of competition in the market, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Bantam Bagels. So another food product, which means it's on your radar. We'll just touch on this real quick because they said they've done about 2 million in sales. She's not pregnant anymore.
No.
By the way, but really great update. Lori Grenier update, 2 million in sales. They're in Starbucks, Kumbaya, everything's wonderful. Did you pull any observations from this one?
Yeah, had a few. First of all, I'm glad that they kept that Bantam name as, to have equity. It's going to be easier for them. I know Lori was just pushing for bagel stuffins as being the full name, and they really wanted Bantam, and they got both. They've got Bantam as the brand name, and they kept that in a prominent location, which I think is really, really smart, because as they expand into other breakfast or bread or bagel type items, then they can rebrand the name of those items under that Bantam banner.
Yeah, they need that umbrella.
Under that umbrella. So I think it's really important with that. Now their deal with Starbucks and the airlines, obviously that's food service deal. Food service operates off much lower margins than retail, but higher volumes. What will be really important, and I don't know if this was done or, I guess you'll have to go into New York City Starbucks to see, is the Bantam name on those bagels. I know in the show, when we saw the update, it looked like there was a little sign that said Bantam Bagels, Bagel Stuffers. I hope they negotiated that in all of their locations, because that's going to really help their equity. If it just looks like a bagel ball and it's just named Bagel Stuffins, then I don't think that's going to help them as much. And it technically could open them up for someone to come in and underbid them and get their bagel stuffing type things in as well. So, you know, just
generic Starbucks label on it, right? And nobody.
Right. So I hope that they negotiated in their branding. Obviously, the only other thing that I saw was on their packaging, which if you saw that, had the Shark Tank logo on it, which we're not technically allowed to use, but you know, I'm sure
she knows all the rules. She's read all the bylaws. So
I am such a
questions. You don't call the lawyers, you call Julie. She'll straighten you out.
I'm a rule follower. I follow my contracts, and I know a lot of companies don't, and or maybe they've gotten approval to do it, or maybe they just, you know, it's
so that people aren't confused, a food product that says "as seen on Shark Tank" on the packaging is against the rules, correct?
Any product. I mean, you can't use the logo in anything at retail. So if you're doing a point of purchase display, if you're doing advertisements like magazines or anywhere, I mean, we can have it on our website and on our social media, but anything that is paid or anything at retail, shelf talkers, you know, on your label, all of that stuff, it's not allowed, and it's not allowed to happen. And there's good reasons for it. And it's regarding liability and what if a product has to undergo, you know, a recall, or if it's defective.
Ebola from the bagel stuffing. I get that.
Right. Well, I mean, anything could happen, and you know, maybe
Shark Tank police
look the other way with invested companies.
Yeah,
but I'm going to stick by the rules. I'm stupid.
We see it from time to time. So next product, more for the ladies, but a little bit for the men. It's called Skinny Mirror. This one, oh man, I want to try to be nice because I'll probably talk to her at some point. But what happened here? What happened with the Skinny Mirror?
Well,
let's talk about observations. It's a funhouse mirror. Like every time you go to funhouse, you see one of those. It makes you fatter, makes you skinnier. And that's where it ends. I've never actually gone through a funhouse and been like, you know what we need to do? We need to sell those at like the Limited and Abercrombie and Fitch so that people think they look better than they do.
Well, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you're a big Seinfeld fan. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. But if you remember an episode that Elaine went into the store and bought this dress, it had these little diamond cut holes in it, and she looked fantastic in the stores. She brought it back, and then it just looked like a big sack of potatoes on her. And they're like, good gosh, why did you buy that dress? But they figured out it was the mirror in the store. So the mirrors have been around.
So I'm not a Seinfeld guy, but why did no one mention that on the show? I mean, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Well, and it could have gotten edited out. You don't know. But those mirrors have been around for 20 years. And I think it's brilliant to sell them to, you know, the retailer because they're going to sell more clothes. But I know that she's trying to promote it as something to have in the household. And for someone who's an exercise and healthy kind of person, if I had one of those in front of me and I look better than I do, then I might eat more because I'm like, oh, I look fine. That's just me.
Yeah, it's that whole, in the NFL, the better the helmets get, the more the concussions go up, right? So like, I can't get hurt. I got this space age. I told my wife, I'm like, I bet Lori's not thrilled about this picture, but it is funny that you can see her reflection in the mirror. And they did that with Mark Cuban when he was talking also. You could see his mirror shot while he was speaking to her. Here's my observation about this, because I'm a digital product guy. I'm an online platform builder. It's validate, validate, validate. You can spend so much money getting into a product that nobody wants. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So I look at this and they do her intro and her B-roll with, I put my light savings. My car is going to get repoed. My family has money in this. And already the red flags are just like going up, boop, 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 boop in my brain. If you've invested that much money, this thing better help us get to the moon and save Matt Damon, because and then I found out it's a mirror. I just thought, all right, Like, you could sell these mirrors on Kickstarter without ever producing one. And it turns out she did go on Kickstarter, raise $85,000. We didn't talk about how much debt she was in. We don't know how long she's been doing the business. A lot of questions I don't know. My issue was with the mindset. I was totally on board with Kevin when he was giving her the Simon Cowell treatment. You're not selling reality. You're helping people escape from it. You're building an image that doesn't exist. Like, you're selling them pills basically and snake oil. I don't see it at all. Your thoughts?
I mean, that was my initial gut reaction, just thinking that, you know, if I look a little fat in front of the mirror, I am going to work harder. And that was exactly what Kevin said. I think that there is a market to these stores because, I mean, even if you look at women's clothing, you know, years ago, I could be a size 6, just say, for example. And now I can go into that same store, Ann Taylor. I was a 6 a few years ago. Now I'm a size 2. I didn't change. If anything, I might have gotten a little bit bigger, but they're sizing down the clothes to make women feel better to buy their clothes. And so, you know, that's, you know, I mean, I guess anything to sell clothes.
Dale Carnegie wrote about
that. But there is competition in the space because if you saw the Seinfeld, I mean, these mirrors have been in existence for maybe 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and Seinfeld is, like I said, I kind of missed the boat. I got into it late, so I wasn't a Seinfeld guy, but he just illustrates everyday normal situations and pokes fun of them. And actually, that takes me back to Bantam Bagels. I was watching this going, first of all, I don't drink. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I probably would try to avoid Starbucks in New York at all costs. The friends I know that love Starbucks and that frequent it often, they never talk about how great the food is. So the fact that Bantam got into Starbucks, does that mean that they're going to drum down the quality of the product and it's to be considered Starbucks food? Or is that Starbucks saying, hey, look, we're raising the bar? Sorry, we're going backwards to Bantam. But if you go to Starbucks, I want you to answer this for me because I don't know. I just hear people say you don't eat food at Starbucks. They just
I usually get a lemon loaf cake. And I don't drink coffee either, but I drink hot chocolate. See, all my hot chocolate. So I'll get like a hot chocolate and like a pound cake or a loaf cake.
So food good, food bad. Just
no, I mean it's fine, but I just hope that they negotiated in having their name on that label, even if it's not their logo, if it's just Bantam Bagel Stuffers or Bantam, that's going to help them out. I know that, you know, the margins aren't going to be great for, you know, on the food service side, but you can make it up in volume. And, you know, Starbucks is going to need they're probably needing at least 50-60% margins on those in their retail stores, maybe even more depending on where the store is. So if
you go national with Starbucks, what kind of volume are you moving? Like, let's say for Bantam, how much product are they selling them on a quarterly basis?
You know what? And that's something that, I mean, they said they were doing a test in New York. So, I mean, can each store go through starting out? I mean, what is their expectations? Is it 200 balls a day per store, you know, to pass the test? You know, I don't know how much they go through. I know, obviously, coffee is their #1, but I like the lemon pound cake.
I'm going to write that down. That does sound delicious, actually. Okay, so the last thing about the skinny mirror, I don't want to take too much time on this. As an entrepreneur, look, and I'm not a woman. I know that, you know, you read Dale Carnegie's book and it talks about sending ladies jeans with the wrong size on them, right? That's one of the stories in there about helping people feel better about themselves. I get that. But if you're going to sell this as a marketable product, one, there's no way to protect it, even if people were buying it. It's a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the stores are going to get busted as soon if they don't disclose the fact that she said she had a PO for $750,000, but they wanted to remove the name of the product. Like, I think, well, wouldn't they have thought of that already? It made no sense to me. 3, every single shark ripped on her. Kevin O'Leary, you're promoting falsehoods. You're selling a lie. You're teaching people to run from reality. Not about that. He used the word Rubenesque, which I thought was awesome, from Paul Rubens, the artist. And he said that retailers will use it to trick the buyer. This mirror is used to deceive. And she said they do it every day, which I thought was funny, but he's out. He'll not be part of the sham. He will not let anyone else invest in that. Great lines. Mark Cuban, the brand will suffer. Damon John, people are already trying to not be who they are on social media. I don't think that's healthy. That was a good line. And Lori Grenier basically regurgitated what Mark said and went out. So then they left. She left, and they said she had an amazing attitude. And right there, I thought she could be doing something amazing with that attitude, but she's trying to sell skinny mirrors. Like, that to me was the saddest part of all this. She's sporty. She's a surfer. Like, there has to be another product out there that will help people, and not in the way that she wants to help them. I just think she needs to go behind the barn and shoot it, as Kevin would say. Give the last one.
I did see, between, East Coast airing and West Coast airing, and went on their Facebook page, and there's a quote that they posted, I guess last week, and it said, "My body is perfect the way it is. You are beautiful." And I'm thinking, well, if you're promoting that message, then why would people need a skinny mirror if people are great just the way they are? It just seemed kind of funny.
Yeah, it's convoluted for sure. It's like everything about you's perfect. You're fine just the way you are, but if you still have issues, I can help you get over the hump psychologically by looking at this mirror everywhere you go. And I could see her thinking, well, everyone needs one in the store, and they get home and they need another one to keep the thing going, the sham going. But I don't know.
Well, I think she's going to sell to boutiques, but I think she should. The reality is she needs to sell a product. I think her target is going to be the boutiques and the retailers. And if that means taking your name off the bottom, that means taking your name off the bottom, because I don't think it's going to translate into the household.
Yeah, and that's really where the convolution is. Like, I'm not willing to take my name off because I want people to know what they're buying, but they only want to buy it if they take the name off so they don't know they're being tricked. And I'm not for that. It makes sense. Although I think there are some opportunities here she's not looking at. They mentioned fat mirrors at one point. Like, that's how she came up with the idea. As soon as it started, I thought, fat mirrors. Fat was way more fashionable until the 60s. I had a podcast chat where I asked someone, like, where did we flip the switch from where fat was desirable to skinny? Because in some parts of the world, like, looking fat is still super hot. Like in Africa, they fatten you up before you get married. And on your wedding day, that's as fat as you're ever going to be. That's as good as you're ever going to look. That's as new car smell as you're ever going to have. And so I was looking through some old ads in the States, and they were promoting the healthier physique up until the late 50s. So I don't know what the catalyst was to switch to skinny. And maybe you do. I have no idea. But fat mirrors, awesome. For men, if you want to get in their market, she could productize. We need bicep mirrors. We need pec mirrors. For women, we need, maybe boob mirrors is a good idea. There's a lot of spinoffs here. And I remember watching a Fear Factor episode where this guy wanted to use the $50,000 to buy butt implants. So butt mirrors could be down the road as well. There's possibilities are endless. I think she's narrowing her vision too much by focusing on the skinny niche. What say you?
Well, I think if I had fat mirrors around the house, I'd work out more.
Right? We joke that we have fat. Well, my wife would say we already have fat mirrors, but anyway, if you like the movie The Prestige, it ends with Michael King saying, "You want to be fooled." Maybe it's true. It's true. All right, this one's in the can. Let's move on. What's next?
Let's see. Switch Witch.
Switch Witch. All right. I should have just paired this together with Skinny Witch. Sorry, not Skinny Witch. Skinny Mirror, because I think it was a little bit of a mess. And I think, like Skinny Mirror, two observations. One, at the very end when they were leaving in their post-game segment, Mr. Boulet, Rob, said, "We were sure when we came here we were going to get a deal." I think his quote was, we thought for sure we'd get a deal, meaning he thought.
Hey, I thought the same thing.
Well, not about them, but about yourself, right? He thought the shark would be eating out of their hands to get in bed with them because of the idea or the way they sold it or how awesome this whole concept was. And it's just not there. And the first thing I thought is there's so many people in my audience who have awesome companies and great ideas and are really making things happen. And Switch Witch got on Shark Tank and really wasn't able to get off the ground. So what are your first impressions?
Okay, so I actually have heard about Switch Witch. I didn't know about the book or the plush toy, but I've heard about the concept from my friends who have kids. And this is at least 5 years ago, probably 2010, 2011. Okay. And it would just be a way that my friends would get some of the kids turn in some of their candy, and then they'd get them a gift or maybe like a video game or something that they wanted that they valued more than the candy. The concept is there. I don't think you need a a plush toy in a book to, I guess, reinstate that. I mean, you can kind of build up the whole Switch Witch by yourself. I mean, again, like the shark said, and I didn't even think about it, you know, it's only one day. I mean, the concept has already been out there. And then Switch Witch, after the episode actually went to look at trademarks, and there are several Switch Witch companies out there, and what made me go to look for it was the fact that I had already heard about it. And I remember he said that they had started in 2013. I'm thinking, well, no, I've heard about Switch Witch before then, just, you know, mom blogs or whatever. Or
you do have like this huge advantage being on the East Coast, right? I have to wait till 8 o'clock here to watch it, and you've already been doing homework for 2 hours. Not fair. Not fair at all. Yeah, and they mentioned that there were other that I talked to recently. He's an older guy. They've ixnayed sugar from their house completely. Like, they don't eat sugar at all, and they don't eat dairy and a lot of other stuff that I thoroughly enjoy and probably couldn't give up. But he said on Halloween, and he's got little kids, he said, I go, how do you manage on Halloween? Do you do the Jehovah's Witness thing and just like turn off all your lights and tell, you know, don't answer the door? He's like, no, we send them out, they come home, they eat whatever they want, and then when they go to bed, we throw it all away. Well, my family, my parents had thrown my candy away when I was sleeping, we would have had another Menendez brothers issue on our hands. I'd be a little bit bloody, right? So I don't know how he pulled it off. So I kind of get the idea of getting rid of the candy. We're thinking about doing that with our kids, but I wasn't raised that way. What I thought was interesting, just some observations. One, the generic unlicensed costumes. You see the kid came in with a shark. There was a princess. There was like a frog-looking Power Ranger. And I thought, have you shopped for Halloween costumes lately? Where do you even buy Target? And everything has Marvel's Avengers on it or Frozen. Like, I don't even know if you can get generic costumes. So they obviously put a lot of thought into this. That was just an observation. And the whole thing about Switch Witch, honestly, I was thinking Ditch Witch. Don't touch my candy. I like candy. I want it the next day. It's a one-night deal, but I eat candy for at least a week straight after that. And that's the magic of Halloween. So did we actually find out what was in the gifts that they got? Like, I was thinking it was going to be a service where you sold your candy to dentists.
No, and that's up to the parents. Yeah, the gift is up to the parents. I know of some of my friend moms who their kids love to read, and so it would be like a Harry Potter book or it would be something that the kid really wanted and valued more than the candy. And it's not like my friends would take away all the candy. They would just take away a portion of the candy. And the better candy that the kid turned in, the better the gift.
Interesting. And better like quantity, or they had to be Snickers and Twix and
well, like, you know, the Reese's peanut butter cups and the really good stuff. They turn that stuff in, you know, the parents love that. Then, you know,
our kids are young enough, we can still skim. Like when they go to bed, we can take the stuff that we want. They wake up and their bag's full of saltwater taffy, and they're like, oh, okay, well, it was still a good night last night. They don't know the difference. So Kevin was a little brutal with them. He said the seasonality is bad. They claimed that it's not. He did say merit of reducing sugar is on trend, but if you remember in Salem, they used to burn the witches, and I think there's a lesson for you there. You should take it out and burn it. I was dying. I love Kevin. Robert Herjavec, I can't get behind it. I'm out. Lori Grenier, I had mentioned on a bench. It's like Hanukkah, but we have more days and more lead up. And then Kevin said, let me translate. What she said is your product sucks. And I laughed again, hilariously. But I wanted to focus on Mark Cuban because I talk about this on the podcast. He said you broke the cardinal rule. When they were starting to drown and they were looking for a life raft, they mentioned how big the industry was. And we joke about this on the show all the time. Do not do that unless you do it lightheartedly and you're making a joke about the comment, which they didn't do. Like if you bring it up, you got to get out ahead of it and say, I know how much you love hearing how big the industry is. Well, I'm going to tell you it's this big and this is how we're going to capture it because you'll get crucified, which is what happened. He said, you broke the cardinal rule of Shark Tank. We don't want to know how big the industry is. And then he mentioned my kids are still young, like my own. We still do the candy thing. We still throw some of it away the night after, which I guess is more regular than I thought. And he goes, you have to go organically viral and you have to solve a problem. Whereas right now you're creating more stress than you are a solution. And I thought he was totally on with that. And that was about the end of that night for them. So final thoughts?
Well, I think it was very nice for the Shark Tank, the producers or whoever decided on the show is to go ahead and air them before to try to help them out, you know, help drive some book sales. I mean, the timing was really quite perfect for them.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I thought, do they have a Halloween show planned next week? I know you looked into that when we were deciding when we were.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. You're right. But I also think if they had done it around Thanksgiving or Flag Day, people would have been like, why are they even on the show?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, 55,000 for 25%. They were sure they were going to get a deal. When you see the 50,000 ask number, you know that it's going to be a little more early stage. But again, I think Ditch Witch. I think there's way too much work to be done here. 25 cost with a book and packaging. It's kind of like that. Remember the elephant in the glass or elephant in the room from a couple of seasons ago?
Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't necessarily need that plush toy or that book necessarily to get out the message. And, you know, I mean, did you really need the actual elephant?
Yeah, it's like something you see on Pinterest or Instagram, and you go, "That's a really good idea," or something your neighbor does, and you think, "Oh, cool, I'll do it." And they went, "Well, let's turn this into a business and let's make everyone do it." So
well, being from Salem, Massachusetts, it was smart for them to try to capitalize on that.
It's actually a great point because they got on Yahoo News, and Mark said, "Look, you got this huge news promotion and all this traffic spike, and you're in Salem, and you didn't sell any. Like, that's a problem." So. Anyway, not so much how long until they though actually Damon said this could be a great hobby and it could grow into something. I thought that was pretty sharp comment. They should just do it on the side, and if they get a big break, great, but who knows. So the last deal was pretty cool, but I have some questions and concerns. It is XCraft drone. How do you feel about drones, Julie? Are you a big droner? Are you a drone?
You know what? I am not a big droner. I really I think where it's going to grow the most is in commercial use, especially on the agricultural side. You know, I think with something that can go 60 miles per hour, can that open it up to search and rescue operations? And, you know, obviously in addition to the entertainment and the movie industry, you know, I think the agricultural and search and rescue, you know, things might be very cool. We do not have a drone here in this house. I'm sure my husband, like every other man in the world, would love to have drones.
Droneless? Uh-oh. It's going to cause problems. I'm teasing. Why are you droneless? Were you not allowed drones? Because you've already indicated your husband wants one. What's the problem? Let's get him a drone.
Well, I don't know that he necessarily wants one. We're just too busy without it.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how mainstream drones have become. As soon as I saw what they had, I thought, well, we're gonna see some activity here if they have a unique selling proposition. And the uses are endless. You look at Amazon now. Phoenix just got same day delivery via drone. I mean, that we're usually the last ones to get anything. And I always think when I hear the drone word, like, who's going to supply all these things? The government uses them already. They've got friends who are making a living doing drone surveillance for land use, like you said. If we had to do any research or impress customers, it was all about the helicopter. In aerial photography, like, you just bypass all of that. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So 60 miles an hour up to 10,000 feet. Initial observations. My first one was Robert Herjavec's question. Do you remember what he asked them to start off this segment?
What he asked? Well, I think, you know, obviously the big concern is what the government restrictions are going to be. Right now it's 400 feet, and he had mentioned that, or someone mentioned that. I remember hearing that. And it's got to be within sight and things like that. I think in the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing a lot of government restrictions. But the phone drone, which they are running a Kickstarter on right now, they're obviously capitalizing off of, you know, the Shark Tank airing. They are doing a Kickstarter right now with a phone drone. I think that's awesome. Yeah,
no, it's really smart. And that's Lori's thing. Lately, she's been doing QVC like the night that her Shark Tank companies air, and they're multiplying the effect of the Shark Tank tsunami. But Robert's question was, am I allowed to do this? And I thought it was interesting because he's Canadian. And I read this, I'm a political guy. I read this great article about how if you grew up in Britain, you wonder first if you're allowed to do something. Whereas in America, you just do it. And then you learn later that someone made a law against it. And so I thought, oh, it's the Canadian asking if he's allowed to do something. Shocking. But then I realized Amazon started delivering in New York and the FAA shut them down. And so what did? They went to Canada so they could test the service because they're allowed to do it over there. So now I'm just totally confused about who's going to get this technology first. But
yeah,
that
I
was
think you have to log their flight plans on any use. I think they do have to log flight plans.
I know when I went through my creepy stalker phase, like I would have loved to have one of these, especially if it had infrared or something. Because if I was tailing my girlfriend while she was on a date with someone else and I wasn't sure which car they were, like I can see just a multitude of uses for really creepy people, dangerous people. And, you know, there's always, like French fries, there's a good side and a bad side, but I think I could have really gotten a lot of use out of one of these in college. What would you do with it?
Oh, too much information there, TJ.
Probably.
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know that I'd have a really good use for a drone right now.
All right, well, we're gonna find you one. The title of this episode for me was the rope-a-dope. Did you think it was interesting that they came in asking for $500,000 for 20%, and they got their valuation tripled in the first couple minutes of footage, and then they went for like the big ask after that? I remember thinking these guys are geniuses, or we missed a lot of this conversation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, obviously a lot got edited out of that. Wish I would have heard the whole thing. It seems like, was it Damon who kind of said, who set the valuation at $6 million, and that's what everyone else kind of stuck to. So I'm curious as to what happened behind the scenes that made him come up with that number, or what they were talking about that led him to that number at the end.
Fact, it was Kevin who Mark commented has turned over a new leaf. He did a straight equity ask, $750,000 for 25%, and then Damon jumped in after and said, I can smell the feeding frenzy, so I'm gonna get things kicked off. But there was also another observation. They made a joke about the Sharks sending them out in the hall so they could talk. And one of my followers on Twitter said they're not really letting them go out in the hall anymore because someone got shut down 2 weeks ago. But obviously, if you want to make a deal and you want to get the best deal, even the Sharks like sending people out in the hall. So one other observation. Did you watch The Office? That's a show that I watch faithfully.
Oh, yes. Love The Office. Yes.
You notice this JD Claridge is like a super bizarro Dwight Schrute. No, nothing.
Oh, you know what? I didn't think about it before.
I was just waiting for Kevin to say something and have JD go false.
Right.
Beats Battlestar Galactica or some line from The Office would be awesome. So question, well, the phone drone was awesome. This thing that inverts like Tom Cruise, we were inverted. I was waiting for a Top Gun line when he said we can fly it inverted. Communicating, keeping up foreign relations. This thing about sharks, what's going on there? Because it rarely ever happens, but also when it does happen, I guess the odds aren't fantastic because you got so many different, hands in the jar. You got different interests at stake. Buggy Beds has never responded to me. They were the first one to get all the sharks. I don't think that their deal went through. I don't know for sure because if they don't answer, they don't want to talk about it. Usually that means the deal didn't happen.
Yeah, I don't think from what I heard, I don't think their deal went through. They wanted to make sure they retained enough women ownership of that company, and that was going to, not allow them to have that supplier diversity.
So Barbara having the night off basically slaughtered that deal. Is that what you're saying? I think it was Damon who was there.
The two ladies, they didn't have 50-50. I mean, they were in with other people from my understanding, but.
So Bizarro Dwight Schrute, they got the $750,000, and I wanted to see some Schrute bucks too. I wish they would have made a deal with Schrute bucks. $750,000 for 25%. Damon John takes it to $1 million, and then Lori jumps in and knocks it down to 20%. I'm sure both of the guys were like, Lori, what are you doing here? But it got better from there. XCraft says, hey, we're really interested in having everybody kumbaya this thing together. And then they went out in the hall, came back, and the valuation went to $10 million. I thought these guys are brilliant or they're freaking idiots. Like, what is going on here? Because usually if the valuation jumps due after the offers start coming in, they get slaughtered. Not so much today. Damon even admitted his ceiling was $6 million. Kevin admitted his ceiling is 5%, which he usually doesn't get out of bed for. And Mark held that to the end. I don't really know. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was an editing hack job because there's no way all this stuff happened fluidly, but I really enjoyed the segment. Thoughts?
Well, you know what? I liked at the end when they said that they saw value in the Sharks because of their ability to execute versus, obviously one of the conversations that must have missed out was whatever kind of VC they were talking to, and how much valuation they were going to get from them. So I think maybe perhaps that conversation made them step up in terms of their valuation to help get it up to that, 6 million or so.
I felt a little sense of pride. Yeah, when Mark Cuban asked his question, the whole time sitting there going, why are they not talking about where these guys got the money to build this? Oh, the other guy was in tech. They probably ran into people every day from the second they started talking about this idea, offering them money, and they didn't mention it until the very end. I was dying over that. And then Mark asks, like, what do you guys, what questions have you been asked? Why haven't you taken money thus far? And they totally gave a shark butter up answer, which seemed to do the trick. And they asked for 1.5 million total, which is 25% for each shark, $300,000 from each shark. And they said they wanted half the money originally for $250,000 for scaling production / inventory, and the other $250,000 to complete the phone drone. Even after raising, they did 173,000 unit sales on Kickstarter. That's ridiculous. That is
ridiculous. And I'm sure their phone drone is going to be right up there with that.
For retail market, anybody with an iPhone, I think the phone drone might be the primary product.
Yeah, I think that's probably the big play there.
Yeah, so these guys are going to kick it in the butt. Shark Tank Syndicate. Mark didn't say I'm in. What do you say? That works. I'm good. Let's do it. But really good segment. Deal is done, and I think I'd love to chat with them about what their strategy was, because they pulled it off to a T. I'm also curious about who their competitors are, if they have intellectual property they can protect. I mean, outside of a flight plan and their design, it's a drone. It's got the whole beat. If they're going to claim design, I mean, it looks like a B-2 bomber. So I don't know if that'll stick or not, but it's just a wing. I think Hitler made one of those during World War II. But all in all, pretty entertaining segment. And I'd love to have Dwight on the show. So hopefully he's not watching this, because he might be offended and won't come on. But well, Julie, it's been a while since you've been on Shark Tank. Is there anything else you can tell us about going on that maybe the average viewer missed tonight? What did we not see?
Well, I mean, and this is just for every segment. Just remember that there are, you're just seeing a tiny clip of what, and we're kind of only judging the edit that we see. And so much more goes on in conversation. So many good things get edited out. Perhaps some bad things get edited out. You just don't know. So a lot of times I side on the side of the entrepreneur. Obviously the beef jerky guys, they got a fantastic flavor edit. That's very important on the food side, to get a flavor edit. Because I think a lot of the food products that go on the show are fantastic, but not all of them, get that overwhelming flavor to edit. So.
Yeah, the worst food edit was actually, can you there's two. Think of your favorite bad food edits.
I think the one that I recall was that chocolate coffee tea thing.
Yeah, Creo Brew.
Creo Brew. And I've never tasted. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I've never tasted it. But again, it's just probably something that's really different. And there's nothing wrong with having the more unique item in the market. You're going to have an easier time getting ahead if you have something really extraordinarily different.
Yeah, I think on Twitter they were calling it Creo Blue. Feel bad for those guys. They got slaughtered. And the other one was Wired Waffles, which I haven't spoken with, but Rob Merlino told me that they left the waffles out for like an hour, and they're supposed to be hot, and they were cold and hard, and it showed on their faces when they were trying to bite them. So
I mean, even if you just throw like an Eggo in the toaster and you let it sit out even 10 minutes, it starts getting tough. And I felt bad for Roger for that. And now they're starting to have microwaves on the set and things like that, so they could get it out fresh.
They're evolving. That's smart. Good thinking. Yeah. Well, Julie, it's been an awesome hangover. You're probably actually hungover now because it's like 3 in the morning where you live, but it's always wonderful to have you on. I'd encourage people to check out what you're up to at slawsa.com, and definitely come back for our first Ultimate Shark Tank Guide to Launching in Retail, which will be hosted by myself and Julie Busha. And how long will it take us to get a hero burger here in the dry Midwest?
They just opened their very first U.S. location in Buffalo, I think last week. So, it's gonna take a while, but I think, they've got about 65 stores, and they're growing at probably 10 or 12 a year. And You know, they've really saturated that Toronto market, and they're kind of expanding out from there. It's kind of a nice match because they, you know, really focus on having fully traceable beef. A lot of their ingredients are all natural. They have a lot of sustainable products. And so Slawsa really fit into it. And it's not like a McDonald's or a Wendy's. It's a higher class burger joint. I mean, they got salmon burgers and other stuff too. So it's just a very quality bread, quality cheese. It's not like fake cheese. They put like brie and Gouda and like the real stuff on the burgers.
It sounds amazing, but all I can think of is, why do you hate me? Because you're not selling it in Phoenix or in the States. You're selling it to Canadians. And that's
you know what? I'd love to do a deal with a company down here, but we are working on getting into more stadiums, and hopefully we can have some good news to report in the spring.
All right. Thanks for jumping in. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This is the Shark Tank Hangover, and we'll be back next week with some more awesome after party goodness. Thanks again, Julie. Best of luck to you.
Have a Slawsa night, TJ.
You too.